Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we are bringing you part 4 of our Gambler's Chest expansion How to Play series. We're going to be covering the Encounters rules. So encounters are a new thing that can occur when hunting your quarry, and it can really add a lot to the game. In the Gambler's Chest expansion, the encounter that is included is the Bone Eaters. Now, of course, if you're using the timeline from the Gambler's Chest expansion for the People of the Dreamkeepers campaign, the Missing Statue event will already be at year 3 of your timeline. If you want to add the Bone Eaters to a non-People of the Dreamkeepers timeline, to whatever timeline you're going to use, it's not the one that comes with the Gambler's Chest expansion, then you would simply add Missing Statue to year 3. An encounter will come with hunt event cards. You will replace a basic hunt event card with the level 1 version of this encounter, which essentially introduces it as a looming threat which could occur during a hunt. The encounter comes with initiative cards. These will determine the order in which the monsters act on their turn, and each initiative card is illustrated with the specific encounter monster that is acting. Opportunity cards are small cards that add horrifying outcomes to encounter monster basic attacks. Counter cards are small cards that describe counter maneuvers performed by monsters when they find an opening. And critical wound cards are small cards that describe what happens when survivors inflict critical wounds on the encounter monsters. The reference cards list essential information that the monster controller uses to pummel the survivors. The flip side of this card has the basic action on it as well as the instinct. During the encounter, you will not use the normal Showdown board, instead using this much smaller encounter board. These life dice are used to track the life the encounter monster has left. When the encounter hunt event is revealed, if the current landing year is the same or later than the lantern year shown on the card, so for the Bone Eaters level 1, you can see lantern year 2 is what's shown on the card. If the lantern year on the card is in the settlement's future, then the monsters are not interested at this time, and you'll roll a random hunt event instead. When you set up the encounter, you will leave the hunt board in whatever condition it was in when the encounter commenced. You'll then locate the encounter showdown, in this case encounter showdown Bone Eaters, and set it up for the appropriate level. So in this case, you can see for level 1, we're going to have the survivors anywhere in those blue squares. We'll have 4 Bone Eaters and then stone columns next to them all. But then you can see for level 2, 3, and 4, things actually do change quite drastically. So in the case of the level 1 Bone Eater showdown, it would look like this. Be sure to place the life dice on the encounter monsters with the appropriate life. As you can see, for level 1, they have 2 life. You never add terrain tiles beyond what is listed for the encounter setup, so for instance, the effects of Strategist or Bug Trap are ignored. If any special trait cards are required, then you would set them up now. You can see for level 1 there are none. For level 2 and 3 and 4 you have Skull Surgeons, and then level 5 you also have Preemptive Party. Keep this double-sided card nearby. Keep the initiative cards nearby. Set out the basic resource deck. Shuffle the opportunity, counter, and critical wound cards and set them nearby. For encounters, these 3 decks plus the basic action will determine the monster's behavior. Encounters have the same round structure as showdowns and are in fact considered a type of showdown. During this video, I'll be explaining the differences between the rules for an encounter versus a regular showdown. But if any questions arise, consult the Showdown phase section of the core game rulebook. At the beginning of an encounter, survivors gain the arrival and start of showdown bonuses as normal. Any effect that directly refers to the showdown, such as during the showdown, will be usable during an encounter. Anything that can be used once per showdown may be used during the encounter and then again during the quarry showdown. All encounter monsters will act during the monster turn, but to determine the order that they act in, you shuffle up the initiative cards and then draw the top initiative card, activating that monster first, which would be this guy right here. This monster will perform the basic action, again found on the reference card, and then you will reveal the next monster, and it will do the same. Encounter monsters perform this basic action one at a time. As they do, they are always searching for an opportunity to get the upper hand. The basic action actually describes when such an opening occurs. In this case, if the Bone Eater rolled any perfect hits in this attack, it will draw an opportunity card. So we'll say this monster attacked this survivor. You can see one miss and then one perfect hit. When a monster draws an opportunity card, perform it as you would any other card. These will always be performed by the currently acting monster, and they use the target of the basic action unless the card states otherwise. Once it's resolved, place it into its discard pile. There are opportunity mood cards. These follow the same rules as Showdown monster moods. You'll place them in play and apply their persistent rule for as long as the card remains in play. Keep in mind, though, that opportunity moods will affect all monsters unless otherwise stated. Now, while encounter monsters may share mood cards, they are still their own individual monster. When rules state that a monster gains an attribute token, only that specific monster will gain it. They also do not share fields of view or adjacency. When an action instructs an encounter monster to move towards a target, it will take the shortest path possible. So, for instance, if for some reason this monster were trying to get to this survivor, it would actually move around that survivor. If no path exists, simply move the monster as close as possible to its target. Encounter monsters cannot voluntarily move through spaces occupied by survivors, impassable terrain, or other monsters. If an encounter monster would occupy a space containing impassable terrain or another monster, place it in the nearest unoccupied space instead. If an encounter monster would suffer knockback, you will move it the number of spaces indicated. If it would move into either impassable terrain or another monster, you will stop it in the last unoccupied space before that object is reached. And of course, if it has hit destructible terrain, you will archive that terrain. Knockback can move a monster through a survivor. So knockback 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now this survivor will suffer both collision and knockback 5. Survivors can perform the same actions in an encounter that they can perform in a showdown. Encounter monsters, however, do not have hit location decks, but they still can suffer critical wounds. Survivors make attack rolls as normal and determine the number of hits as normal, but instead of drawing a hit location card for each hit, survivors will make a wound roll for each hit. On a successful wound attempt, the encounter monster suffers a wound, and you adjust their life die appropriately. If a survivor has multiple encounter monsters in range, they must declare which one they're attacking. If that one ends up moving out of range during the attack, all hits that are not yet resolved are canceled. They cannot be transferred to a different encounter monster within range. Critical wounds still happen with Lantern 10s as normal, as well as with luck and any other applicable rules that may cause a critical wound. When the monster suffers a critical wound, draw and resolve a critical wound card. If a survivor kills a monster with a critical wound, they still draw and resolve the critical wound card as normal. After resolving it, place it into the critical wound discard pile. A survivor kills an encounter monster by reducing their life die down to 0. At that point, the miniature is removed from the showdown board. At that point, the miniature is removed from the encounter board, and its initiative card is also removed from the deck. Encounter monsters also are able to counter. The counter condition is listed right here on the reference card. In this case, at the end of your attack, unless you are in the Bone Eater's blind spot, it draws a counter card. When the counter condition occurs, the monster controller draws a counter card and resolves it. Once resolved, place it into the discard pile. Survival opportunities operate the exact same way they do in a regular Showdown, but keep in mind, since there is no hit location deck, the opportunities during reactions do not arise. It's possible that an opportunity or counter card may have a flow on it. If it does, that would be a survival opportunity. At the end of the encounter, the survivors obviously have either defeated the monsters or have been defeated. Either way, there is no aftermath for an encounter, as this is not the end of their journey. If the survivors have been defeated, resolve the defeat as normal. If they're victorious, they gain the listed rewards, but then they must make a decision. Since they will keep any wounds and conditions they've gained during this encounter, they may or may not want to continue the hunt. If the survivors do wish to continue the hunt, they will pick up on the hunt board exactly where they left off. If, on the other hand, they are going to return home, they will suffer starvation and end the hunt. However, the survivors also could choose to hunt a lower level quarry. No positions, the survivor or the monster's position, will change on the hunt board, but they now can hunt a monster one level lower than they originally set out to hunt. This, of course, cannot be lowered below 1. Finally, you take the level 1 Bone Eater encounter card out of the hunt event deck and replace it with the level 2 encounter. When that one has been resolved, you would replace it with level 3, and when that one's resolved, level 4, and once that one's resolved, the Bone Eaters are gone, you don't have to deal with them anymore. And that is how you play the encounter rules for the Kingdom Death Monster Gambler's Chest expansion. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to come back, as we will have part 5 patterns coming up in the near future. We also will have part 4 of our Dungeon Universalis how to play series coming up very soon, as well as lots of other great stuff. And until next time, if you're bored online, bored offline.